Hey guys, how's it going? So I'm working on the Scar 18 video. It's going to be a full review, and I ended up just putting together the differences between the Strix and the Scar. And I felt it was a little bit too long to put into full review, so I just decided to cut something together and just give that to you guys right now. So like always, subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know what you want me to cover in the full review. Alright guys, so let's talk about the differences between the Scar and the Strix G18. There's actually a lot more similarities than differences, and a lot of the changes that ASUS made is more cosmetic more than actual quality. So immediately you can tell that the color is slightly different. We're getting a black finish on the Scar, and like a gunmetal, almost with a tinge of green on the Strix G18. And you can see that the design is also a little bit different here as well too. The Scar uses a line going down diagonally with the ROG logo, and the Scar logo illuminates, while the Strix says Republic of Gamers, copied and pasted several times diagonally, and it kind of forms a bit of a triangular pattern, and this ROG logo is not illuminated. Another difference is this little backplate is removable, while it is not on the Strix G18. But overall, the build quality is very, very similar. You're getting very similar aluminum on both of them. The finish feels a little bit more textured and rough on the Scar versus a little bit more smoothed out on the Strix G18. Maybe this is using more of the natural finish, and this is probably using some kind of anodized coating, which does increase the cost, but I mean, unless you have them side by side, you're not really telling the difference by touch and feel at least. The back of the laptop is plastic on both of them. I'm not really able to sense much of a difference, if at all, obviously except for the color. The Scar throughout goes for a darker, more black appearance, while the Strix has a bit more of a gray finish. So that's it for the lid. When you turn them over, you do actually start to see some differences. On the back, there's one important difference, is the fact that there's more rubber feet. This is rubber on the right, center, and left. And the rubber feet is actually thicker on the back of the laptop as well. And this middle portion here is also rubberized. And so is this portion right here. This gray bit is just plastic. On the Strix G18, you're getting rubber on the four corners, but as you can see at the back, they're actually a lot smaller. There is a rubber strip here, and this part is plastic, while back on the Scar, this is rubber. The reason why I'm mentioning that is when it's on the table, there's absolutely no difference. It's not going to slide, it's not going to wobble, but when it's on your lap, these extra rubber feet do actually make a pretty big difference. But that's about it. Like I said, there's some styling differences. Those are mostly cosmetic. Other than that, they're the same. Ports are going to be identical. The only difference is the translucent side panel on the Scar versus it's just a smoother, maybe a bit cheaper feeling plastic on the Strix G18. But the ports are identical, and let's just move on. And the lid feels identical too. The hinge and the lid there's no difference. So the next thing is the keyboard deck. There are some cosmetic differences. The Scar has a translucent area, and then it fades to being just a more black plastic, while the Strix maintains that same gray profile throughout. And honestly, this part is kind of subjective, which one you prefer. I think I do prefer the darker black nature of the Scar, and it helps the keyboard lighting pop a little bit more. It appears a little bit more contrasty, but the keyboard lighting is identical, at least on the keyboard deck. One thing I have noticed about the keys though is they're a lot smoother texture on the Strix G18 versus they're a bit more textured and a bit more of a rougher pattern on the Scar 18. I'm not going to say that they're double shot PBT or ABS or anything like that, but they definitely feel a little bit more high quality because of the slightly textured pattern on the keycap and the trackpad. For some reason, I don't know if this is my unit, but the Strix feels a little bit more responsive on the trackpad area, and I believe the Strix uses plastic while the Scar definitely uses glass. I'm still unsure about the Strix. I really want to say it's plastic though, but But for the scar, I can tell that this is glass. And the light strip in the front is essentially the same. It does seem to have a little bit more of a diffuse and maybe a bit more high quality look on the scar because of that translucent plastic that they're using versus, but it's actually identical. And on the back of the scar, you have a light strip where the ventilation is. Oh, and also the bezels have more of a gray on the Strix versus being black on the scar. But overall, like I said, a lot of these are just cosmetic, subjective changes. I don't think the build quality is that much better on one versus the other. I think they're 90% the same. So, I mean, so go for the specs that you want, not necessarily whether you want a Strix or a Scar.